us at stanford.edu.
First of all, I'd introduce this class by saying that I hope that this class will not always be taught in this room, because it's not very appropriate, and we're trying to find another room right now. But in any case, this is the modern African American freedom struggle. And what I'll do today is introduce this class by talking about Du Bois as a person who has made a unique contribution. And this will be a sample of the kind of lectures, because during this quarter I'll focus on a particular individual every day. And I'll use this individual as a way of describing certain themes that go much broader than that individual. I'll look at the relationships of that individual to others who made major contributions during that period. And I think it's really good to start with Du Bois because he is such a central figure in African American history. One way of looking at his centrality is to look at the title of this recent biography, Pulitzer Prize-winning biography of Du Bois, and you notice the subtitle, Biography of a Race. Imagine that, a biography of a single person being described as the biography of an entire race. And I think that Du Bois, to some degree, justifies, it's not an overstatement to say that by looking at his life, we can look at so many of the central themes in African American history. One of the things that Du Bois said about himself, actually, was that when he wrote one of his several autobiographies, he said, not completely immodestly, he said, "I think I might say without boasting that in the period from 1910 to 1930, I was the main factor in revolutionizing the attitude of American Negroes toward caste. My stinging hammer blows made Negroes aware of themselves, confident of their personalities, of their possibilities, and determined in self-assertion. So much so that today common slogans among the Negro people are taken bodily from the words of my mouth." Well, you can see he had definitely a very large view of his role. And I think that when we look at his life after the point in this film, at the beginning of the century, within the 20th century, and he starts the 20th century already 32 years old, I think it can be said without question that he is the most influential American intellectual of the century. Imagine a book written in 1903, Souls of Black Folk, which still outsells any of the books that I've written today. So this, I think, indicates that people are still concerned about Du Bois's attitudes and the way in which he conceptualizes the issues of race in America. One of the things I think we could also say is that all subsequent scholarship about African Americans, all the stuff that we do, all the stuff that is done in CSRE and the African American Studies program, can in some ways be seen as a footnote to what Du Bois has already said. I mean, if you want to know what CSRE does, look at the first page of Souls of Black Folk. It outlines the whole agenda for the program. If you want to look at what we do in terms of African American sociology, look at the Philadelphia Negro, written more than 100 years ago. If you want to see an engaged intellectual, somebody who makes a contribution in terms of his scholarship, but also makes a major contribution in terms of public discussion of issues, a public intellectual, as Cornel West would say, well, Cornel West learned all of his lessons at the foot of Du Bois. He is, without question, the preeminent intellectual. But I think he's also the preeminent political thinker of the 20th century. Just a few of the things that would kind of outline this role. If you look at what he did with the souls of black folk, how many of you are aware of the themes in the souls of black folk? How many have read it, by the way? No one? Anyone kind of know about the book? Okay, tell me one of the themes. Uh-huh. Okay. Well, it kind of gets to the differences in terms of perspectives of race, the way in which people of different race perceive things differently based on their backgrounds, and that was a new insight. Anything else that, yes? Right, and what was that debate? The Booker T. Washington versus Du Bois. What were they arguing about? Because that's a debate that's still going on today, over 100 years later. Yes?
This argument for the speech about the way in which African Americans against functions in a racist society where this was very common. Booker T. Washington feels that African Americans are simply, not in the social aspects of the society, they could be functioning and still be okay while WEB Boyd feels that it would benefit African Americans. Immerse themselves within the society as a whole and not isolate themselves.
Okay, Booker T. Washington would probably say, going to a liberal arts school like Stanford, what is it going to do for you? It's not a practical skill. We need to cast down our buckets where we are. In 1903, where are most African Americans? They're in the rural South. They need practical skills. And this is what he is arguing. But in a broader sense, he's arguing, lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. Don't think that by integrating into American society, you're going to improve the race. You're just going to escape from the race. And it's probably a useless attempt to try to escape. Liberal arts education versus vocational education. All of these debates are still going on. Separatism versus integration. All of these ideas that came out of that debate are still divide the black community. And I think, quite frankly, many African Americans in their own psyche have elements of the Du Bois position and have elements of the Washingtonian position in that debate. What else in the book? There's a chapter called the Sorrow Songs that have to do with